Hello there, this is Tad Baker, the Director and Master of Ceremonies for the Loon Show in San Francisco. I'd like to give you a little background on the recordings you're about to hear. James Katsaros was a battlefield veteran of the Korean War. He was involved in the very first battle of that terrible war, when at the age of 14 he was swept from jail in Japan to find himself on the muddy runways of Pusan, South Korea, on his way north to put a little starch into the South Koreans, as you like to say, who were facing an invasion from their aggressive neighbors. Now, in these recordings, Katsaros outlines both his experiences in the early stages of that war and offers articulate reflections and philosophical observations which, to my mind, are quite profound. As a person who had never been in the military, I became so transfixed by what I was hearing, I failed to ask any real pressing questions, too caught up in listening to his story to be able to play the role of objective interviewer. However, I do feel these recordings represent the very essence of his war experience and are exactly what he wanted to relate. I met Katsaros in the spring of 1982 when I was living on a Christmas tree farm in western Sonoma County, right across the street from him. What began as a casual afternoon conversation soon evolved into me becoming a devoted student of this enigmatic and brilliantly talented man, who became known to me simply as Jimmy, or the Master. For Katsaros, whose stage name was Demetrius Toteras, was simply a giant who soared far beyond his peers, earning an international reputation as one of the most daring experimental theater directors of the 20th century. I became his principal student and remained with him for over 10 years, during which time he profoundly influenced nearly every aspect of my life. But oddly, and even though I would spend long hours with him on an almost daily basis, I rarely heard him mention his war experiences, only in passing and brief references with no real detail. It wasn't until the summer of 1987 that he actually offered that he'd been a two-time prisoner of war in the Korean War, and would one day like to tell the details of his story, but not then. No, Katsaros was not a man to relive his past or to indulge his eager listeners in war stories. I believe the experiences were so painful and jarring that he'd simply determined to keep them buried. Everything changed, however, in the summer of 1991, when the first Persian Gulf War veterans began returning home to mass acclaim and the many shouts of their amazing heroism. One day in August, at the beginning of an unrelated recording session in his home, he abruptly said, "Tad, I need to talk about the Korean War today and the disgraceful treatment of our veterans, especially when everyone's calling those weekend warriors heroes." What followed were several hours of the most harrowing material I have ever heard. Katsaros had a real talent for storytelling, and I sat riveted to his every word. After about 2 hours, he became suddenly emotional, and I stopped recording. On a couple occasions over the next few weeks, he added more to his reflections, and those pieces have been included at the end of the second recording. Within a few years, we had gone our separate ways, and it wasn't until 2007 when we caught up with each other again. Toteras, or Katsaros, had been diagnosed with Parkinson's and was not doing well. I was, and still am, in a wheelchair, becoming paralyzed from an accident in 1999. Yet those few sessions together again were priceless and invigorating, at least for me. During one of our talks, I mentioned the Korean recordings and how I, nor anyone else, had heard them since they were recorded, and how I felt they should be heard at some point. He sat quietly for a moment and then replied, "Tad, find someone who will make sure that young people who've never seen war, and not just vets, hear them." I understood, and I vowed to do just that. What follows then are the only existing recordings from one of the very few survivors of the first battle of the Korean War and the retreat that followed. Let's begin.
See, the thing is, right now, I think that veterans that have fought in wars should come forward now, because Madison Avenue, I want you to take note of this, Madison Avenue has created store-bought heroes They're trying to make heroes out of these guys in the Persian Gulf, and they're not. The only thing heroic about them was that they said yes, we'll go, and they left their jobs at the mall or at the shoe fair or at their funky accounting jobs, or a lot of these nurses that were in the hospitals. They weekend warriors that were pushed out there and performed this great big drama on TV. None of these men fought. And I want one of them to come up and fucking look at me in the face and tell me that he has fought. I think that this embarrassment that they've given to all veterans, I find it an embarrassment. I really do. As a veteran, I find it as an embarrassment that these people should be given these national applause, where it was actually, the applause was put together by some more probably non-veterans that were at Madison Avenue promoting heroes the way they promote soap operas or promote soap boxes or cereal boxes.
So you're saying it was an artificial applause?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying it's an artificial. I think it's such an embarrassment. It's not even artificial. It's an embarrassment, man. It's an embarrassment to anybody who's ever served this country. Really, I mean, I don't think the man who served as a quartermaster or the man who served in the rear echelons was any less of a veteran in a war. They partook in the war, but what war was this? I don't want to, it's not my interest really as to the war. My interest is to the making of heroes. That's what I'm interested in, the making of heroes, how they've made heroes out of men that aren't heroes. And I don't know how these guys that went over there aren't ashamed and really walk with their heads down out of embarrassment that they should be equated with guys who actually fought.
I see, for accepting the label hero.
That's right.
All the awards.
That's right. No, I
see.
feel that very strongly, because the last war of the lines was fought in Korea, and they never once have ever said anything. They never said a damn word concerning anybody there.
There's never any talk about the Korean War, or what?
No, there's no talk about the Korean War at all, because it was something that they wanted to forget. It was a war that was just filled with disaster after disaster after disaster after disaster. One brilliant thing was done there, and that was the landing of Incheon. It was a brilliant move. It really was. Typically American, well planned, coordinated, and what have you not. But after that, nobody took the initiative. After that, it was the same story again, up north and retreat, retreat, retreat. Why do they want to talk about a war that they retreated? While the politicians sat there and bickered and jawed amongst each other, men died. You know, there was a lot of people that died, and the cost of human lives in Korea was more than the cost of human life in Vietnam. And Korea was not even 4 years that war started, and it wasn't 4 years old when it ended. As compared to 11 or 12 years in Vietnam, that war, there was more people lost on all sides. Chinese, North Koreans, South Koreans, civilians, in the millions, man. In the millions. And the troops that were lost, they were actually slaughtered. American troops were slaughtered. They were slaughtered like cattle in a slaughtering house. They were slaughtered, man. Regiment after regiment was thrown against divisions, and they were slaughtered. They brought in a regimental combat team from Okinawa. All of them were green troops. They were slaughtered. Just outfit after outfit was slaughtered. They threw them into battle, and there's where you died. They threw them into battle, and there's where you died. Company after company. And they raised the issue that these men here are heroes, or they deserve these marches that they've had, these applauses. I think this country has gone to hell. I really have. The minute you use duplicity on your veterans, you've played your last card, man. You played your last card. The minute you dupe your veterans, the ones who fought for you, you've played your last card. You're in bad straits now, mister, you know. You're in very bad straits. The minute you make these people into heroes, because that's all that heroes you have to make, why don't they bring the heroes of the ones who fought? No, the thing is this, nobody is asking from them wars for anything. You know, I haven't, anybody from the Korean War, I haven't heard anybody ask for anything. We haven't asked for monuments. We haven't asked for our names to be recorded anywhere. When I came back, because my nerves were sick, man, I kept throwing up. And I went to the Veterans Hospital. They offered to send me to Palo Alto to the crazy house. I said, I'm not crazy, I'm throwing up. Nerves, man. Couldn't keep food down. Car drive by and woo. Anything, any noise whatsoever would startle me. Everything bothered me. Noises, silence, darkness, scents in the air. All of a sudden I smell cordite. From where? Where was it? There was no cordite around. I smelled cordite. Where was that cordite coming from? From my memory. My olfactory memory was putting cordite in my nose. All these things were helping to drive me mad. But because I wouldn't go crazy, my stomach rebelled against me. And I kept throwing up. I couldn't keep any food down. I got down to about 130 pounds. And finally, I went to the VA hospital. So they said, you need mental treatments. I said, I don't need no mental treatments. I need to stop vomiting. There was nothing left to vomit no more. So they, huh?
You were involved in some of the very first battles that took place.
Oh yeah, the first one. The first battle. The absolutely first battle of the Korean War. The Battle of Pusan.
How did you find yourself there? How did you wind up out there?
By mistake, like everybody else did, but by mistake I found myself there. I came to visit a friend of mine I was in Saipan, stationed in Saipan. We were cleaning out the area in Saipan. We're cleaning it. After the Second World War, they stacked ammunition in Saipan in order to attack Japan. Right across from Saipan there's a little island called Tinian. And from there, the B-29 carrying the atomic bomb that blasted Hiroshima and Nagasaki took off from there. It's 2 miles off the straits of Saipan. You can see the island. And the Navy made it into a leper colony. And when I was there, we were supposed to, it was 1949, we were supposed to clean out the area, right? Clean the area out of all the ammunition that was there. It had caught fire.
Oh, I see.
They had stored the ammunition there in order to attack Japan with. And it had caught fire, and a lot of that artillery shells and all that was in bunkers yet. And the Chamorros, the people who lived there, wanted their land back to cultivate again.
Right.
And the American government was paying them, I think, $100 a palm tree that they had blasted. And then they were planting new crops and what have you not. So in order to clear the land and make it safe for them, because the island wasn't all that big, it was just 7 miles across, they brought in bomb disposal men, right? And that's what I was. I was in bomb disposal. But I was a helper. I wasn't a certified disposal man. And what they did is, like, they would take a big shell, they would take all that material and put it on pallets, put it on big flatbed trucks, take it down to the port, load it on barges, take it out to sea and dump it, right? But there was a lot of them that were critical. That meant that they could explode upon moving them. And these were taken apart by crews. And I was on one of them crews. And what happened is that one day we went out to work, and I went to get water up on the hill. It was about 200 yards away. And when I came back, 10, 15 minutes later, that damn thirst hit me again. I told the sergeant, his name was Gaynor. I told him, Sergeant, I got to get a drink of water. He said, you just came back, you lazy thing. And nice man. And there was 4 of us on that crew. So I said, go on. He said, but double time and come back. I almost got to the water and I heard an explosion behind me. I looked back, they were gone. While defusing the fucking thing, it exploded.
Oh my God.
That's right.
And that would have been you.
I was on a team, yeah.
Oh my God.
So I had leave coming. So another friend of mine that was there said, why don't we go to Japan and see what's going on there? We're in Saipan in the Mariana Islands. We're going from island to island to island to pick up the ammunition and dump it at sea. We went to Iwo, Kwajalein, and now we were on Saipan, right? Cleaning that area out. There was 94, 95 or something like that. The 560th Bomb Demolition Team. And I was learning my trade, how to defuse, artillery pieces, hand grenades. Because the hand grenade, you pull the pin and the hammer fires, and you got about 4 seconds. There's a powder train in it. And then there's like about 80 little squares on that thing. Looks like a pineapple, and all these things break apart, and they fly, shrapnel flies apart. That's why it looks like a pineapple. And where it's like, the chocolates, when they stamp out like that, so you can break them off easy.
Right.
That's why it's made like that. And and what happened was the place would be filled because they had thousands of boxes of hand grenades. And it caught fire there. Now the things that didn't explode, they had to be transported and dumped. But if there was anything critical there, one hand grenade could light up all kinds of things, kill a lot of men. Mortar shells, thousands of mortar shells. And the mortar shell has a cap on the bottom, and when it hits the bottom of the tube, it goes bang and bang, it fires out. So the fuse is on the back of the mortar shell, right? And when they drop it in the tube and it fires out. And millions of rounds of M1, millions of rounds of 50 caliber, 30 caliber, shells, 8-inch shells, 155s for artillery, for 105s, for 75s. All these things were there, And that we had to clean them out. And another kid there, he picked up a grenade and the thing blew up in his hand. It was a dangerous job, man. And we got paid $50 a month more, hazardous duty pay. Yeah, we were commended by the President of the United States. We got commendation from the President of the United States. Yeah. Because all of it was volunteer work, You weren't forced into that.
You volunteered for that duty.
Yeah. I thought that was headed for the infantry, and I didn't want to go in the infantry. And there was a chance to volunteer for that, so I did. As a matter of fact, when I did, the guy says, "Are you crazy, man? You got it easy here." But they treated us nice, and every so often they'd send us on R&R. So after that accident, the Captain Donovan, he said, "Go, take a leave." He said, "I'll give you 15-day leave, R&R. Go to Japan." Fine. I did. And I went with this other guy that I knew. And there was a Greek friend of mine that I had met at basic training. He was an old-timer, old fella, who kept joining the army. He was a gambler. And he kept joining the army in order to clean out the troops. Then he'd go out and spend all his money and then join up again. And he had been doing that since the 30s. So he was up in his 40s, late 40s. And he was in southern Japan with the 24th Infantry, and I had communicated to him. I sent him a letter, and he said, "Come on down, and you can stay with us down here," he said, "and enjoy yourself for your leave." So that's what I did. I went to Japan, and that was in June, the end of June.
Of 1950.
1950, yeah. I think it was like the 20th of June. By the time I got there, and then I went into Tokyo, the airport outside of Tokyo. And then they had briefing there for the troops that came, and they said not to fuck any of the Japanese women. And because the man didn't want that to go on, referring to General MacArthur. The man didn't want that to go on. And what it was is a lot of hustlers were running. There was a big hangar, and the chaplain talked to you, and some other information officers talked to you, and they told you don't fool around with the Japanese women. And then the medical officer talked to you, and he said if you do fool around with them, make sure you use a prophylactic kit. And then the chaplain talked to you, and he told you, he said, You don't want to get involved with these people because they don't have the same sexual mores that we Christians do. So then amongst the crowd of troops that was there, these hustlers had run around, and the hustlers would tell you that we got this dye here, and if you put it on her cunt and it turns color, that she's got the clap. Or other guys were selling sunglasses that really looked funny. And then they said, you look at it, and if it turns blue in your glass, that means she's got syphilis, you know. They were selling all kinds of shit. And then they told us that the veterinarian doctors are the ones who were checking them over, and they put USDA on their legs. And they said that the real USDA doesn't smear. And this here, he said they stamp false stamps, they told us. And these things were selling for $10. You know, you follow the scam, right? Everybody's scamming about everything. Well, that was going on in Japan. And the Japanese police would bow to you respectfully. And we stayed in Tokyo for a couple of days and saw Tokyo 1950, right? Just after the war. I'll tell you the truth. I tell you the goddamn truth, man.
You don't think you could relive the battle in your head?
I don't think I can.
It was that hard.
Because I'm looking at it now. See, like when you're inside of something, it's just like when you're sick. Somebody asks you, how do you feel? And you say, I feel rotten. But when the sickness is over with, you say, Jesus, my legs, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move my hands, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that. And at that Battle of Pusan, that was the first battle of the Korean War that I got thrown into. And it was by accident, like I told you. It was absolutely by accident. We went down to see my friend Ralph in Kumamoto, Japan, if my memory serves me. In Kumamoto, Japan. You figure it's 40 years ago, man.
Right.
Kumamoto, Japan. And camp was Camp Woods. And the 21st Infantry Regiment was there. See, in them days, the regiments would be billeted in different barracks, so that you wouldn't have a whole division in one camp. You know, you'd have one regiment here, one regiment there. So if anybody attacked any one regiment, you know, another regiment could come. Right? So the 24th Division had 3 on-the-line regiments. The 19th, the 21st, and the 34th. And my friend was in the 21st Regiment. Well, we went out on the Kumamoto Strip, it was called. It was all bars and whorehouses, geisha houses, gambling houses. So I went to a gambling house that Ralph, the guy that I went to see, was a professional gambler. See? And how I met him was in Fort Ord, when the Kanakis, being professional gamblers themselves, the bastards, you know, the Hawaiian. There was a Hawaiian platoon that came to do its training at Fort Ord. And these guys here, man, I mean, the Hawaiians, you know, are probably the slickest people in the United States. Because number one, they have in them Chinese, which gives them that super, super depth of thought. They got Portuguese in them, which is like lightning, really. A lot of Portuguese blood in them. And they got, some of them have that Kanaki laid-backism and bigness in them. I mean, they have Japanese blood in them, you know, which has that kind of Japanese tenacity and the ability to abstract things to their barest necessity. The Japanese are the most practical fucking people on earth, man. Their practicality drives you nuts. Really, man, they're practical people. I mean, you think the Americans are practical? Horse shit, you know. The Americans are practical, but without any culture. The Japanese are practical with a 3,000-year-old culture, you know. So, I mean, you know.
Hell of a difference there.
Yeah, well, that thought is what fucked up the generals in the Korean War. They thought that because the Japanese were so practical, so tough, so expedient, You know, they're really, as occupiers, they're absolutely ruthless. Not because they're mean people per se, because Japanese aren't really mean people. They have, you know, they cry and they feel and they have, no, they're not mean people. It's they're practical people. They don't ask you to spare them, but they won't spare you either.
I see. They give no quarter and they receive none.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. They become very tyrannical when they rule anybody. So when they were in Korea, they for 50 years they ate up the Koreans. The Koreans were so scared of them because the Koreans weren't that mean. All the Asians to us look very mean, but they're not. It's not meanness that drives them. It's that the thought that you must kill your enemy or he'll get up again to kill you. You know, it's the final blow. It's goroshi. It's in their martial arts. It's in their thinking. They give no quarters. They ask for none. They don't beg, man. They're not people that get on their fucking knees and beg. They're respectful of the ones who beat them. And when I went to Japan, the Japanese were extremely respectful. Not because they were scared of us. It's because we won. They were respectful of that they won. And they didn't moan. They didn't complain. They didn't do shit. They fucking worked. And when I went to Japan, you look at their Nissans and their Toyotas and all that. When I went to Japan, they were making rooftops out of beer cans. They would open up the beer cans and fold the sides of them and make sheets. And the sheets would make rooftops, and they were roofing their homes. They were getting that crap from the American dumps. They were working in the American compounds. The Americans did nothing. They absolutely did nothing. The Americans that were there as occupying troops absolutely did nothing. They did not work at all, nor did they train at all. The Japanese roads were too small to conduct training. So this is important. So the battalions, the companies, the regiments had never maneuvered in order to be able to cooperate with each other. When you maneuver, you got 30,000 men. What do I do with them? I mean, how do I move 30,000 men? I can't even get them kids over there to do shit. How do I move 30, 40, 50, 100, 200,000 men? What do I tell each one what to do? So I say, Army Corps number 2 takes that position, Corps number 3 that position. Now that corps is made up of numerous divisions. The divisions are made up of numerous regiments, thousands of companies, you know what I mean? Artillery, tanks. Man, a division is a division. It's a walking battleship. It has everything it needs in it. It has guys that repair trucks in it. It has motor pool mechanics. That's a division. A division just isn't men with rifles. It takes, in them days, it took about 6 guys. More. But say 6 to 7 men to keep one infantryman on the line. Oh, you need post offices, you need medical, you need fucking motor pools, you need mechanics, you need oilers, you need blacksmiths in them days. You need quartermaster, you need, I mean, you fucking signal corps, you need a lot of people, man, to keep one fucking guy on the line shooting. See, so the division isn't made up of just rifle companies, all rifle companies. It's also made up of many other. Every regiment's got only so many rifles. It has so many light companies in it and so many heavy companies in it. The heavy companies in infantry is heavy infantry weapons, like bazookas, machine guns, mortars. They have mortar companies, mortar squads. That's all they do, right? Mortars. So here I am. I've never used a 50 caliber machine gun, right? When I was in basic training, I was on KP, you know what I mean? But I was a deadly marksman, man. I had gotten all kinds of awards in my marksmanship. And I never fired a rifle before in my life. Deadly accurate, yeah. I'll show you pictures. Medals I got for marksmanships and shit like that. Why? I don't know why, but I had a steady hand. And I had a very steady eye, and I didn't get excited. I squeezed, I breathed right. Something was there. I was so good in marksmanship that I could actually cut the thread of something holding something up. No, that's a fact. Vaughn came down here with a pistol one day and there was tomatoes over there. And I shot 6 times and shot 6 tomatoes and none of the tomatoes had hit with a bullet hole. I hit the vine on top of the tomato with a pistol that I had never used. No, I'm serious, man. I never fired another rifle again since I got out of the Army 40 years ago.
Is that right?
Never, I've never touched it again.
Damn.
Never. Other than this here with Vaughn. Never touched it, ever. Other than that. I swear to you, I never fucking touched it. I'm afraid to put my hand on it. I'm afraid that I'll take that and look at somebody and just shoot to see if it was real what I did then. You understand? This is in the depths of the human mind. Unrealities that take place in your life that you can't coincide with this reality that's very real. Why should I arbitrate with you when at one time I had lost and tried to lose quickly the ability to arbitrate? As an infantryman, if you try to arbitrate, even in your mind, if that thought of arbitration is there, you'll die. You must kill the guy who's trying to kill you, and that guy there is trying to kill you. And these Asians, when you fight them, there's a look on their face that is absolutely heinous when they come at you. Their face turns into, just like you see portraits of old Chinese warriors or samurais, a mask that's such horror on it. They scream, man, when they come at you. I mean, they kia, you know. Man, you petrify. That's so. If you survive the first charge, then you're a vet. That surviving the first charge is the most awfulest fucking thing that can take place in your life. Because the man said, you know, fix your bayonets. And man, I didn't even know how to put it on. I didn't know how to fix the bayonet. I had never gone to bayonet practice. I was somewhere else. I was on guard duty. There was no war, don't you understand? There was after the greatest war in the world.
So again, you were.
So they didn't train us with any thought that we would ever fight again. The sergeants were so mellow in the Army. You got no idea. They had what was known then as sergeant's law. There was Army law, there was civilian law, and there was sergeant's law. The sergeant was the law, man. There was no inspector general. There was, but he never involved himself with the sergeant, right? And the sergeant law was mellow. He came up and he told you, I don't want no trouble. Exactly what he said. Now, some of these sergeants had fought in the First World War, right? And had fought in the insurrections in the Philippines. They were old sergeants that killed with their hands. They weren't sergeants that pressed buttons 10,000 miles away. Or they weren't sergeants in the Air Force that sent sky high 40,000 feet to bomb people they never see. These sergeants had killed. These sergeants had strangled, tore throats out with their hands. These guys were killers, man. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? These guys were professional fucking killers, real ones. And they were the sweetest people you ever want to know. They were. They didn't bully you about with this movie sergeants that they finally developed. This stern, belly-aching son of a bitch. That's all fraud, man. That's part of the fraud that took place off of whether the chicken or the egg came first. Real sergeants didn't have to yell. You looked in their eyes and you knew you should. And the first time I was in the Army, it was raining. I was 14 years old. And it was raining outside. And I said, no one's going to go out. And I was in the bathroom. Nobody was there in the toilet. A big, huge 30 seats to piss and shit on. And I was in there and everybody, it was raining. 4:30 in the morning. The whistle blew. And that means all the troops went out, except me. I didn't think anybody was going out, so my eyes or ears didn't hear anybody leave. And I was in the shit house. And that sergeant called the roll call, and it was raining, man, cats and dogs. And he didn't yell at anybody, but you didn't have your raincoat on either. You stood in the rain. He didn't say, you son of a bitch. He didn't say anything. He just left you in the fucking rain, man. And roll call was in the rain. So he called me, and me wasn't there. So he brought the company to parade rest, and they stayed in the rain, and he came looking for me. And he looked at me, and he saw that I was just a little kid, and then he said, why weren't you out there? And I said, because it was raining. Yeah. And he pulled me over. He said, I'm going to let you go. He said, but the second time it happens, he said, you'll be dead. I'm going to kick you to death. They're going to take us to the hospital, and they're going to take the boot outside of your ass. They're going to pull my boot out of your ass. And yeah, God rest his soul. Yeah. That's it. He didn't punish me. He didn't, but I believed him. Because of the tone in his voice. He didn't scream at me. He didn't yell at me. He didn't hiss at me. That's what frightened me, the impartiality of what he said. It was the killer in him. It said, that killer in him says, I don't arbitrate. Don't ever get in front of me. Don't ever stand in my way. Don't ever disobey me. He taught me that into my feelings that very second, instead of browbeating me like they do in the fucking movies. That's all movie crap, man. You know, that's the way the army was then. They didn't fool with you, man. It was sergeant's law. The sergeant pulled you over and beat you to fucking death, man. He meant it. He didn't say it metaphorically. He meant it, that he would take me over and beat me to death. And he could do it. He could do it, man. There was nobody that could fuck with him. No, I'm serious when I tell you that. Nobody. He was the master sergeant. But that meant something in the infantry, master sergeant. It meant that he survived many battles and he learned his trade, right? But after the war, the army was very lax and they didn't demand from us. The sergeants still try to make us into good infantrymen, but the times were against them, right? The army changed in 1953, the big reform acts in the army. They reformed all that. They made make-believe men. The great battles were over after Korea. They weren't. I feel sorry for the Vietnam veteran because he never had a chance to really fight on the line, to find out what it's like to bond with your brother next to you. You know?
They had gun battles, though, didn't they? Firefights and such?
Yeah, they had firefights in little groups. I'm talking when a whole division holds together. Different thought, man. You know that if you break here, that your mates 6,000, 8,000 yards down the line will be enveloped and destroyed from the rear. I mean, that thought that I'm not just fighting me, but if I move, if I retreat. The concept of retreat wasn't there, you see. The American Army had never made compensations for retreat. The American Army did not know how to retreat. They didn't know, because they had just finished a war that they didn't have to retreat. They didn't have to retreat. They just finished a war that's all they did was advance. They never had to retreat. Had they asked the Southern generals what it feels like or how it is to fight in retreat, the Southern generals could have told you, but there was no Northern general that could tell you how to. Oh, I know they all studied Xenophon's Anabasis in the retreat of the 10,000. The Anavasis, yeah, the retreat of the 10,000. Sure, they all study that as classical. And when they study the retreats in Korea, they sort of gloss them over and they say, well, ill-preparedness and all that. It wasn't just ill-preparedness, it was the officers weren't competent in retreat. They didn't know how. They did not know how to retreat. All they thought about retreating, you know, like retreating to an army that knows how to retreat, it also is setting up traps, it's setting up snares, it's setting up positions for the enemy to fall into so they can change their retreat into something else, right? But that's not what was going on with us. With us, we were fighting, trying to fight, go backwards. At the battle, after the Battle of Pusan, we held them off for about 6-7 hours. We held them fuckers off.
Excuse me, how did you get into it though? I mean, you were still in Japan.
Yeah, I was in Japan and the war broke out, and we had been arrested that night at Arbogast's gambling house. They raided it. The fucking MPs did. They had nothing else to do. And they raided the joint, and they put everybody in the stockade, in the 24th Regiment stockade. And I can't remember, it was Sunday morning, something like that. But they had given orders to clean up all the jails. And put these cocksuckers in some kind of companies and send them to Korea.
Oh, I see. So they just emptied the jails and put them on planes.
Yeah. Plus, troops that were in that battalion, you know. But not all the troops were in that battalion, so they sent 2 companies out right away in these C-54s with all our baggage. I had summer clothes on, khakis, with low-quarter shoes. I didn't have any infantry walking boots. I had my boots were in Saipan. I didn't bring them with me. I brought my vacation clothes. Everybody was fucking in Japan, man. Nobody was doing anything. Nobody was doing a fucking thing. All the sergeants were big and fat and fucking these Japanese women. Everybody was fucking. Yeah. You got paid. It was about 500 yen to an American script dollar. They had script. And for $1, you could go to the geisha house all night long.
Dude.
You know?
Incredible. And so you woke up and found yourself on a plane to Korea.
No, they cleaned us out and took us a fucking driving rainstorm, man. They fucking took us in C-54s, put us in there, fucking wet to the skin. And they got to Korea and they landed in Pusan. There's an airfield outside of Pusan. The airfield, mud, man, mud. One of the planes blew up. And that was the plane that was bringing in the bomb demolition man. I'm a bomb disposal man. It's different, right? The demolition men are from the engineers. They know how to blow things up. I don't know how to blow a building up, you know. I mean, where do you put the charges at to blow it apart? Well, anyway, they brought us there, and then they, by bus, they brought us to bus and caravan. It was something bizarre, man. If I could draw that from my memory, it would probably be the most absurd cartoon that you would ever see or have ever seen. It was guys that had khakis, other guys had guitars, a couple guys had fiddles. They grabbed what they could grab, and that was it, and dumped it in their bags. And they just thought it was one of them shitty ass flights they were going to make, and nobody was doing anything in Japan anyway. Nobody cared. The war was over with. There wouldn't be another war for 100 fucking years.
And they weren't really concerned with who the Koreans were.
No, nobody knew who the Koreans were. They started a war on the 27th of June. And then we got there, I think it was July 1st. And it took us from July 1st to get up to Pusan on the night of July 4th. July 5th, at about 8 o'clock in the morning, the battle began. And what they did is they brought their tanks and started shelling us with 88 millimeter shells. They started shelling the top of the hills. And we were under bombardment for about 2 hours. And then after the bombardment, they opened up with mortar shells and leveled that area again. And then after that, their infantry came. Yeah. And I mean, they moved, man. Because we're on the top of the hill, we had dug in. And you get them as they come over the crest, right? But you can only shoot so fast. Because we had single shots.
Single shot machines, Jesus.
So I got on a 50 caliber machine gun. And I never used one before. And I opened it up, not in burst. I just opened it, and it burned the barrel. And we didn't have any other barrels.
Oh no.
I didn't know how to clear it. I didn't know how to use it even. I let go the whole box. They used to shoot about 700 shells a minute.
Oh my God! And you burned the machine up?
Yeah, it burned the machine up because I didn't fire in burst. I just opened it up, let her go. We had a couple 30 caliber air-cooled guns. And we had a bazooka and a 75 millimeter. And the tanks came through and they wiped out the artillery that was below us. They had 6 field guns. They had 6 field guns, and they put one gun up at the point of the pass. You following me?
Mm.
They put one gun up at the point of the pass, and the tanks came down that road, and there was one gun facing the 42 tanks, but it only had 6 armor-piercing shells. That's right, they call them heats.
Against
Used to call
42 tanks?
Yeah, he only had 6 shells he could fire, because the other shells that they had, high explosive shells, they're only good. They're not good against tanks. They bounce right off a tank. And the whatchamacallits that we had, the bazookas that we had, I think 2.7 bazookas, I think they were. So many years, I forget. They'd bounce right off the T-34. They bounce right off of it. So one of the most dreaded things to the infantry is a tank. They just walk right through you. There's nothing to stop. In them days, there was nothing to stop them. The bigger bazookas, the 3-point bazookas, we didn't have with us. Because there was no tanks in that part of the fucking world. We had the small tank in Japan, the M24, because the roads were too small in Japan to handle them. After a while, the Japanese built big roads, But at that time, they didn't have them. And the whole army was being run by Japanese, Japanese were doing all the cooking, Japanese were doing all the serving, Japanese were doing all the laundry, cleaning the barracks. The things that makes men proud of their outfits, the Japanese were doing. Because like when you're a soldier, you take pride in being a soldier. Oh, you're not a soldier. A soldier is a total job. It's not a job that you go to and you can tell your boss to go fuck off. When you're a soldier, you better take pride in your regiment. You better take pride in your company, in your squad. You have to take pride in it, or you're not going to live. That taking pride has a lot to do on the line, because we've learned how to be proud together. We've learned what happens when we fuck off. We go clean the shit houses. We go do duty that reminds us that we fucked up. You can't fuck up in the Army when you're asked to give it all you got. You can't fuck up. That's the thought. You can't fuck up. Now, retreating is fucking up. Something is wrong. The troops are not fighting, right? Nobody stopped to say that we didn't have any equipment to fight with. We did not have any equipment to fight with. All this army that was confronting us was all high tech for the time.